For sure.
I'm sorry, it's really funny out the corner of my eye to watch people look.
Okay. Yeah. The Facebook Live is working. We're working. Okay. So, first and foremost, I want to thank you guys for being here because it means so much to me, but it means a lot to God too. So, I cannot wait to see what God does in our life through building a village, because I just love to see how it continues to grow. And I hate to say it, but it amazes me every time we come and do this session, because it's like it exceeds expectations every time, but that's what God does. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here. I want to open up in a word of prayer, so if we'll bow our heads. Dear Spirit of the living God, I just want to thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here in this room together, Lord. I know that when 3 or more are gathered in your name, Lord, that you are here in the midst, Lord. And I just ask that you be a vessel through me, oh God. Help me just portray your word, Lord, to speak your word, and let it not be me talking, Lord. Let me decrease so that you can increase in this room, oh God. Just guide and direct me, Lord, so that my words are you speaking through me. I just thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, Lord. In your sweet name we pray. Amen. So, tonight we're going to talk about, the title of our session is Be Not Afraid. But first I want to talk about what building the village is to begin with. So, a village, if you can remember when you were younger, they say it takes a village to raise a family, right? So that's helping hands, helping continue to nurture, to grow one person, one another, to always have somebody's back and always to be with each other. And I think that as women, we don't do that enough. So that is what this is all about, to help us come together as one so that we can be together, grow together, both spiritually, mentally, and physically. Most importantly, do it while glorifying God. You see, I chose the word village because we're not trying to build a kingdom here. We already have a kingdom that we're going to. So we're building a village to love, to nurture, and to grow the kingdom that we're already inheriting. See, anything that we have right here, it isn't ours. It's going to go away, but we have a kingdom that is everlasting. We have the King of all kings that we will be underneath. And so I think it's very important that we love each other and we grow together, because that's what God wants us to do. He wants us to put his love into action. And with you guys being here tonight, something told you tonight to come to this house. Some of you know me personally, some of you don't know me at all. Some of you may know me while listening, some of you might just got this video shared and you're just listening to it. The point is, something told you to click view, or something told you to ask for my address to be here. And we all know that that something was God. God put his love into you to be here, and that's what we're going to do, is put God's love into action. And just by you being here is putting love into action. But I want to be able to do that fluently every day. Not just when we're in a setting like this studying God's word. Not just when we're in church, and not just when we're in a Bible study. But to be able to be walking lights of God. That we can reflect, and that other people can wonder what they have to do to come to the God that we serve. So they want to be more like us. So that's just what building a village is all about. If you haven't been here before, or if you needed a refresher, a rundown. And so tonight's topic is Be Not Afraid. The title is Be Not Afraid because if we're quite honest with ourselves, many times in the flesh we are afraid. And as women, we don't like to necessarily admit when we're afraid, because after all, we are the head of the household. We are the thing that nurtures the people surrounding us, the people under us. We are supposed to have it all together. When things are wrong, they run to mom, or they run to the big sister, or things of that nature. So we, as a stereotype, automatically take that role on. Even if you don't have siblings, and even if you don't have kids, you've seen it happen before you. You've seen it happen around, and you just think that you have to be this Wonder Woman, so you shouldn't be afraid. And so fear is something that's hard to speak on. I don't like to admit my fears. I can say that for sure. But it's most likely hard. It's hardest when it's in the dark. So tonight we want to talk about being afraid. Maybe everybody's been afraid of not getting a job, or maybe you're afraid of not amounting up to a certain thing, or maybe afraid you're not going to be the role model you should be, or maybe the mother that you want your kids to see, or just maybe that you're afraid of just not being the dream that you have of yourself. And so when we find the disciples in the text that we're going to read today, they're in a moment where we think they should not be afraid. Jesus has just performed a miracle that is feeding the 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. So in an instance where this miracle has occurred in our life or in front of us, we should not be afraid. So that is where we're going to begin from. We're going to be in Mark chapter 6, verses 45 through 52. I have them printed out for you. I think on the first page, maybe not. So I gave you a second to get there. Alright, and it reads, "Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get in the boat and go ahead of him. While he dismissed the crowd, after leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, 'Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid.' Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their heart was hardened." So, do not be afraid is recorded over 100 times in the New King James Version of the Bible. What other reason would God inspire man to write, "Do not be afraid" in the Bible over 100 amount of times for any other reason than to remind us that with the King of all kings, with God Almighty by our side, we have nothing to fear. We have no reason to be afraid. So he continuously reminds us, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, it is I. Don't be afraid, I am with you. Be still, I am with you. And yet, we know this, we read it, we can witness his miracles as the disciples just had done. They had just witnessed Jesus feed 5,000 people, immediately went to a boat and had fear. And you see, it's easy to not fear something that is right in front of us. It's easy to not fear something when we have someone with us, right? When the thing that what dispels our fear is next to us. But when we're alone and when we're thinking about the fear and when we're letting it be inside of our head, we don't think like that. We are quick, if you will, to forget where we came from. And I feel in a way that's how the disciples were. They kind of forgot for a second who was with them. Because what other reason would they be so afraid to not recognize Jesus? So I feel like this is the same in our life. When we have these miracles going in our life, when our life is in our favor, when we get the job that we want, when our family is working out the way we want it, when we have this cookie cutter life, we forget about what got us there. We forget about the miracles that brought us here. And so, if we back it up further in the text, I was trying to look, oh, not like that, sorry. If we back it up further in the text, I want to back it up to when Jesus fed the 5,000 to tie these miracles in together. So, if you will, same chapter, verses
35, maybe?
See. It was on my phone, but I forgot I was recording on my phone. Okay, verses 35. Yep, Mark 6, verses 35. So, in the text, it reads, "And then it grew late. His disciples came to him and said, 'This is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages. Buy them something to eat.'" And so what happens when our plans, they gave Jesus their plan of let them go, Jesus. We're tired. These disciples are weary. They have been teaching all day. It even says earlier in reading the text that they hadn't even themselves had time to eat. So what happens when our life isn't so cookie cutter? Our life, the miracles around us aren't so much happening, but we're just living our day-to-day life. We're working a job. We're doing everything that we should be. We're living our normal lives, right? And we grow tired, and we grow weary, and we begin telling God our plans, right? We begin, before you know it, you begin telling God what you want. You begin telling Him, Lord, if you just do this for me, I'll do this. We almost make ultimatums with God. We try to word them so in our prayer it doesn't sound like that so much, but we're demanding God. And so the disciples here, they say, they say, send them away to the surrounding country villages so that they can buy them something to eat. So, Jesus, we've been teaching them, we're tired, we're hungry, send them away because they've come from all over, and so they're not in their home and in their environment. So if we don't send them away, it's getting late, the places are need clothes they need to eat. So I'm giving Jesus this plan. And He answered them and He said, you give them something to eat. And we're like, whoa. Hold on. That was not the plan. So what happens when we have this plan that we think is just God-proof? And we think that He's going to go along with it, and so we have this plan, and He tells us to do it. And when we're tired and we're weary and He tells us to do something, we fear it. We wonder, we start questioning God. We start asking God, why me? Why are you putting me in this position? Why do I have to do this? And we keep facing these trials, and the reason we begin being afraid of where we're at in life is because we forget where we came from. We forget who's putting us in the situation to begin with. We forget that God has the plan and the blueprint for our lives. And so before we realize it, we're not remembering that He told us to be not afraid. We are afraid of His plan and why He chose us to do this in the first place. These people, these villagers, they could just as easily go to the town and buy them some food. And so, but He told us to give it to them. And when God tells you to do something, when He places something in your life He wants you to do, there's a reason for it. There's a reason for everything. When you keep hitting this same trial, He's trying to teach you something. There's a reason for His seasons. It's not, He can turn a mess into a message. It's not like He couldn't change what's going on in your life. He's teaching you a message. So if you feel like it's a mess to your message. It happens. And so He says, you give them something to eat. And they said to Him, shall we go and buy 200 worth of bread and give it to them? And He said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. He just told them twice that they are going to provide for these people, and yet
they're like, but God.
and yet we begin to doubt. He says, so we go buy 200 worth of bread, like us? They could walk there just as easily, but God's saying no. You're going to provide. And that's what we need to do in our life. We need to not be afraid to provide for people. We too often, when we don't want to give somebody too much because we don't want to seem vulnerable. We don't want to step out on a limb and speak to a stranger and just say, hey, how you doing today? Because we don't want to be weird. We don't want to speak to a woman because she intimidates us. We don't want to do all these things because we're afraid of the outcome. But God says, be not afraid. See, when we start living in His lifestyle and we start doing the things that He's called us to do, loving our neighbor, loving our enemy, loving our sister, loving our brother, everything else will fall into place. There's still going to be trials. Don't think there won't be. Don't think there won't be. But every step, He's walking with you. And so if we just take a second to be not afraid and to provide for the people around us, He'll amaze us every time. Amazing so much that after they fed the 5,000, there were still 12 baskets of broken bread for the disciples. You see, the beginning of this, and why they didn't want to do it, is because they were tired and weary. They were tired, they were weary, they were hungry. I mean, it's almost just like you've been working all day, and you come home, and there's nothing in the fridge to eat. And then you go to the grocery store, And then you gotta bring it back, and then you gotta cook it, and you're just like, whoa, why don't I go get fast food? It's the same concept in a way. And so, when we're tired, and when we're weary, and when we're hangry, if you will, because that's me, you don't want to provide for anything, let alone yourself. And so, but when you do that, when you start, even in your moments of your tiredness, and you provide for people, and you love one another, and you continue to offer up what you have to the table, God will provide for you every time. And that's why they still have their 12 baskets for themselves. And he immediately dismisses them, and they go to the boat. And in the boat, we read the text, there was a storm, and yet they thought he was a ghost. They thought that Jesus was a ghost, and they were afraid. And he says, be not afraid, it is I. And yet, we just witnessed a miracle, but we forgot where we came from. And so, I believe that when our life is favored, we begin to not praise God as much. I believe that we don't praise God in the times of sorrow. But we don't praise God in the times of our lifestyle being favored, but we only want to go to them in the times of our sorrow. And God is telling you that whatever you're going through, he is there. And so I often think that our fears, think of the movie Jaws, okay? In the movie Jaws, the director, Steven Spielberg, yeah, I was about to say it right, yeah. Steven Spielberg, right? In the movie Jaws, he had a replica of this great white shark, right? So he could record the movie and make the movie Jaws. But while he was recording the movie, the replica kept breaking down. And so he began having to shoot the movie around the replica of the great white because it was broken down. And so while he was shooting around the shark, right, we never saw it. We ended up seeing it, but we didn't see it, right, at first. And we all had this suspension, and we're at the edge of our seats because we're fearful because it hasn't came to the screen yet. Right? Because you hear the music, it's almost like, just like the movie Michael Myers that in Halloween, when we hear the music but we don't really see what's happening, or in the Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger before he comes in the dreams, like we always have this suspension when we don't see it, right? And I feel like it's the same way when we don't voice our fears, because we're keeping them in the dark. Just like we're shooting around the shark, we're shooting around the fears. We're tiptoeing around the fears because they scare us. Right? We don't want them to come to the light because what might they say if it came to the light? Oh my goodness, what might a person say? But yet, what if do you think that God cannot dispel our fears? This is the same person that spoke and there was light. So you think he can't put light into our darkness? And so when we're stepping around our fears and when we're afraid to speak and we keep them hidden, it is in that moment where we are hiding our whole self from God. Where we're surrendering part of us, but we will not surrender it all. Where we're not giving him all of us so he can't bring us to our full potential because we're not providing him with the ingredients to do so. And so what are you afraid of? What are the fears that keep you locked up inside? Everybody has them. I have fears, you have fears, and I'm not saying that you won't still be scared of them, right? But if we give them up to God, if we give ourselves and we give our fears to God, let him work within those fears. After all, he says, be not afraid, it is I. They thought he was a ghost, and it was Jesus. And so you think that whatever fear is in our mind, Jesus, and he can't dispel them. And so I just ask you tonight that if you are afraid, to give it up to God. Surrender your fears to God so that he can work within you. And I have a psalm that I want to read. It's going to be Psalm 56. And I want you to write it down because I want you to remember it. And anytime that you're feeling afraid, you can go to it. Alright, Psalms 56, and the title of it in the English Standard Version is In God I Trust. Be gracious to me, O God, for man tramples on me. All day long an attacker oppresses me. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? All day long they injure my cause. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They stir up strife, they lurk, they watch my steps, as they have waited for my life. For their crime will they escape, and wrath cast down the peoples, O God. You have kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Then my enemies will turn back in the day when I call. This I know, that God is for me. In God whose word I praise, in the Lord whose word I praise. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? I must perform my vows to you, O God. I will render thank offerings to you. For you have delivered my soul from death, yes, my feet from falling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. And so when you begin being afraid of something, or if you feel, sometimes we won't admit that they're fears, but we just feel something creeping up inside of us. Like we don't really want to classify it as a fear because we're not really sure if we're scared of it. But we feel unsure. You know, we don't want to say that we're necessarily scared of it, but we're unsure. I ask that you write it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror. You put somewhere that when I'm afraid, put a blank, and then I put my trust in you. And when you're afraid, or when you find yourself in these moments of darkness, and maybe you're wallowing in your own darkness, maybe you're sad, maybe you're just weary and tired, and you just reflect back to this and say, when I am feeling your blank, I put my trust in you. And I truly believe that you'll begin to see the light dispel in your life, because God will hear you and He will work within you. We're giving Him the opportunity to come into us in our hearts, in the part that we are dark, in the part that we are scared of. We're dispelling, we're showing the fear, and we're revealing it to the God. And when we lean on our Creator and entrust His love into us, I believe that's when magical things begin to happen, and things that we never thought we would quite see. And I just really want to express the fact that God is with you all the time, and that you must realize that when you're walking your everyday life, when you're driving in your car, when you're at work, just speak to God and talk to Him, and He will just begin to show you things that you never even realized within yourself. And if you put your trust in God and you ask Him to show you your plan, He's going to just start laying things out you would have never imagined. And I just want to kind of close this session in a word of prayer, if you will. So, dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for these women in this room, these women that are listening, because I know that when women get together in your name, Lord, you begin breaking generation curses, Lord. You begin impacting our families that are immediate right now, but our outlying families, Lord, our future families. When you speak within us, Lord, and when we start living in your word as a woman, I know that you do magical things, God. And I thank you for being in this room and being in the presence, Lord. I ask that I just reject the fear of rejection, Lord, and that anyone here that has fears and has a heavy heart, Lord, I just ask that you work within them, God, so that they can see your light shine in them, Lord, and that they can grow in you and grow in a relationship with you, oh God. I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank you for these women, oh Lord, and I know that as you continue to put your hand and walk with us every day, Lord, that we will grow closer to you and lean closer into your understanding, and that you will guide us to your purpose, oh God. And I just want to thank you. In sweet name we pray. Amen. Let me finish this.